In the heart of Babylon, a king carved justice into stone, but whose shadow still darkened the law. In the heart of ancient Mesopotamia, where the twin rivers Tigris and Euphrates carried both life and death, there arose a king whose name would echo across the centuries, Hammurabi of Babylon. His reign was not merely of conquest, though. His armies marched far, and his banners claimed the fertile plains. It was a reign of words carved into stone, of principles fixed in eternal lines, of law made visible. In an age when the will of kings often shifted like the desert wind, Hammurabi sought to bind himself and his people to something unshakable. They say that in the great city of Babylon, beneath the ziggurat's shadow, a black stone stele stood tall. Upon it, in meticulous cuneiform script, 282 laws were etched for all to see. At the top of this monument was an image, Hammurabi himself standing before Shamash, the sun, god, and divine judge, who extended to him the rod and ring, symbols of justice and kingship. In this single image lay a message. These laws were not merely the inventions of a man, but the will of the heavens brought down to earth. The code covered every corner of life: marriage, trade, agriculture, property, crime, debt, even the wages of an ox driver and the obligations of a midwife. It was precise, sometimes shockingly so. If a builder's house collapsed and killed the owner, the builder himself was to be put to death. If a man put out the eye of another, his own eye would be destroyed in turn. And yet, for all its severity, the code was also a protector. It shielded the weak from the strong, the widow and the orphan from exploitation. It was the attempt to set order against chaos, to create a world where power was not the only law. The people must have gathered in awe before that black pillar, reading or hearing read the decrees of their king. Perhaps a farmer, dusty from the fields, stood before it to learn his rights against a wealthy landowner. Perhaps a merchant, cheated in the marketplace, found in those lines a promise of justice. In these laws, Hammurabi's voice reached into the daily lives of his subjects, not as a distant ruler, but as a constant presence. But there is another shadow here, one that history cannot ignore. The code of Hammurabi was not an equal covenant. Punishments varied not only by the crime, but by the status of the people involved. To harm a noble was a greater offense than to harm a commoner. The scales of justice, for all their divine imagery, were weighted by the hierarchies of Babylonian society. The king promised fairness, but fairness as the gods had ordered the world, a world in which rank was destiny. Yet the genius of Hammurabi's code lies not only in the laws themselves, but in the act of recording them. In a time when rulers often passed judgments by whim, Hammurabi declared that even the king must obey the written word. Once inscribed in stone, the law became something beyond the man who made it, something that could outlive him. And indeed it did. Long after Babylon's walls crumbled, long after the Euphrates shifted its course, fragments of his code survived in buried ruins, waiting for the spade of archaeologists to bring them back to light. When the stele was rediscovered in 1901, buried for millennia beneath the sands of what is now Iran, it spoke again, not just to historians, but to all who have ever wondered at the origins of justice. For in those ancient lines lies the seed of an idea that would take root in every civilization that followed. the belief that law can stand above the ruler, that the words inscribed today may bind the hands of tomorrow. Hammurabi himself is long. Gone, his empire folded into the great tide of history. But in the black stone that bears his code, he still speaks of justice tempered by order, of power constrained by principle, of a king who sought to rule not only by the sword, but by the chi, pen, or rather the chisel. His laws were harsh, his justice imperfect, yet he carved into the memory of the world the notion that civilization itself rests upon the covenant between ruler and ruled. And so, in the shadow of that stele, we glimpse not only the grandeur of Babylon, but the enduring question of all ages. Can law truly be just when written by the hands of power? Or is every code, however noble in intent, bound to bear the shadow of the king who made it? Hammurabi's answer, etched in the language of clay tablets and divine authority, still stands, a monument to the belief that even in a world ruled by men, the law can speak with the voice of the gods